Hello, and welcome to Transmission X. I'm your host, Nate Allen. The date, January 27th, 2024. This is the 6th transmission. A transmission is the sending of a signal from one person or place to another. It is my hope that this signal provide you a beacon so that you may find what it is that was meant to find you. If you have found this frequency, it is not an error. So stay tuned, but most importantly, be ready. In the last transmission, I revealed the true antichristic identity of the Council of Nine. Remember that they are synonymous, or if not, one and the same with the godless ones, the fallen angels, who taught man the corrupted version of the mysteries. But before I continue, I must address something I mentioned and explained the mystery of what happened according to the Bible in the Garden of Eden. I said that it was because Adam and Eve ate from the tree of life that they surely died, or spilled the seed and lowered their vibration. I need to correct that. I think of the tree of life and of the tree of knowledge of good and evil as a dichotomy, and therefore actually part of the same tree in the center, in the midst of the garden, as the translation states. But what I should have said was, according to the Bible, Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That is more correct and an important distinction in the mystery itself, with it symbolizing completing the sexual act, or also symbolizing the path of the flesh compared to the path of the spirit. I wanted to clarify before moving forward, because that basic mystery and the serpent symbolism behind it will continue to come up the more we continue to peel back the layers of the great deception we are all under. But today, go back to the previous transmissions. Remember how the fallen, the godless ones, taught man the corrupted, perverted mysteries. Let me elaborate on that a bit before I continue. Let me give you some examples of how the half-truths and slight deceptions have thrown man onto the path of the fallen. You can find this again in the Book of Enoch, the Book of the Watchers. If you have never given it a read, I definitely recommend it. But right now, allow me to provide a brief synopsis of what is going on in the Book of Enoch that is so important when it comes to the mysteries, the Council of Nine, the fallen, and what is happening today. In the Book of Enoch, Enoch is taken up to the heavens and shown the mysteries by the heavenly angels, the ones that were not cast out. On earth, the fallen angels, the Watchers as they're called, interfere after sleeping with human women, and they teach inverted teachings of those same heavenly teachings, in this way corrupting the mysteries. For example, the fallen ones teach human beings magical medicine. Enoch learns healing. Those same fallen angels teach man divination. Enoch learns astronomy. You see, where Enoch learned the precise architecture that created the heavenly order, the fallen taught how to manipulate that order by teaching other teachings such as specialized metalworking, for example, making weapons. They taught again divination, cosmetics, sorcery, enchantment, alchemy, writing, meteorology, the solar mysteries, and magic spells. And there were actually specific fallen angels who taught specific mystery teachings. So the true mysteries are what helps maintain true harmony, and the false, corrupted mysteries, the warped teachings, they destroy the harmony, and they destroy the order of creation itself. And today's transmission will focus on a certain sorcery, will focus on enchantment, that of sorcery affecting the mind. That was taught by Semjaza, and Amaros taught them how to resolve the enchantments. They taught this specifically to their wives. So, that being said, the history of covens and their influence over mankind will absolutely get its own transmission. But for today, let's take a look at the influence the fallen can have once they infiltrate the teachings of a priesthood. In previous transmissions, I mentioned that the Council of Nine through the Brotherhood of the Snake has taken on many forms and gone by many different names. One of those names is the Society of Jesus, or the Jesuit order. Now, this order has been so influential that they will get their very own transmission in possibly a 3-part series. Now, I'd like to focus in on a certain Jesuit and how his manipulation and curiosities affected the lives of thousands of victims 200 plus years in the future. He was a German physician with an interest in astronomy. His name was Franz Mesmer. After studying at Jesuit universities, he took up the study of medicine specifically at the University of Vienna in 1759. He then published a doctoral dissertation by the name of The Influence of Planets and Their Gravitational Pull on the Human Body. Remember, this is the corrupted mystery, and it may be real, but the teaching of it was corrupt, and this was the teaching of the serpent rising up the spine, the energy in the body. You can look at many Eastern civilizations to find the energy centers of the body, specifically the Kabbalah. You can even find it in Asian countries such as China, and it is taught as meridian. This idea of energy going through the body and being affected by the luminaries is what Franz Mesmer was fascinated by. And it started out as a normal fascination because of his teachings at Jesuit universities. But then came a priest, a Jesuit priest, by the name of Maximilian Hell. You heard that correctly. Maximilian Hell. This is the priest, the high-ranking priest who was also an astronomer. Father Hell, as we'll call him in this transmission. He was known to attach magnets and use magnets for therapy on his patients. Yes, Father Hell also practiced medicine. After this, after he suggested to Mesmer that it was not outward associations with gravitation, but inward associations with magnetism, Mesmer revised his animal gravitation theory and then started teaching the theory of animal magnetism. This universal force was not external gravitation again, but rather an internal force. Mesmer began to base his medical practice on this belief that an invisible magnetic fluid ran through all living things. Disease resulted when this fluid would become blocked. That is the teaching of acupuncture. Using the meridians, with the restoration of this energy flow, health then could be restored. But this practice, this therapy, was anything but traditional. And these practices that he learned from Dr. Hell or Maximilian Hell seem to be where the corruption or the perversion lies. Allow me to paint a picture very quickly. Gold slippers, lavender silk robe, Franz Anton Mesmer, moving slowly around silently in a dimly lit room, waving a metal wand over a large oak tub of magnetized water. His patients surrounding the tub would press protruding metal rods to the afflicted areas of their bodies. Then, ethereal notes of a glass harmonica, its sound resembling that of clinking glasses, would reverberate throughout the room as incense wafted through the air. After a flick of his wand or a touch of his hand, Mesmer's patients fell into trances, cathartic and curative, so they said. This was his process, anything but traditional. Using a wand, they would fall into trances. Keep that in mind, because where there are Jesuits, there are the elect, as they call themselves, or the elite. He married into the Posch family. He married Maria Anna von Posch, and that gave Mesmer immediate elite status, though he was never able to physically prove this magnetic fluid, and due to his methods being of a strange nature, He ended his days not taken seriously by the majority of the medical community. But it was not all for naught. One of his methods, which involved inducing a suggestive mental state, remember the people he put in trances. This method is still alive and kicking in modern-day psychology today, and it has been perfected by some very powerful groups. One I'll focus on today is our U.S. government, and specifically the CIA. One of Mesmer's ardent supporters made sure that a part of his work lived on forever. His name was James Braid. He was a Scottish surgeon. He labeled Mesmer's magnetic somnambulism as neuropnology, or the more common term, hypnosis. Interestingly enough, after the Greek god of sleep. Stories of hypnotists can be found all over the internet and in many books, but there are some stories that can be found that will even make a president apologize. And at the end of this transmission, you will hear that president apologize to the American people. We'll get to that here shortly. Let's go back to the previous transmission's mention of Project Penguin and Dr. and, in my opinion, CIA asset, Andrija Puharich, parapsychologist and creator of the group The Round Table, which was run from 1948 until 1958. It was a private paranormal research center where Puharich experimented with a number of famous psychics. Consistent with the psychological parapsychology research he claimed to be doing, he would use methodologies such as hypnotism and channeling. And channeling is where one takes a medium or a person and is said to have communication from entities from the other side that would come through that person. According to the Stargate Conspiracy, the truth about extraterrestrial life and mysteries of ancient Egypt, Lynn Picknett and Clive Prince claim that Puharich was in the active beginning stages of inventing mind control. The round table in which I am referencing were not just other parapsychologists, psychics, and the like. It was funded, and meetings were attended by the elite of the day. The names, if you know what you're listening for, are very illuminating. There was Marcella DuPont. There was Alice Bouverie, which was an Astor, a descendant of John Jacob Astor, and the daughter of Colonel John Jacob Astor IV, who built the Astoria Hotel and went down with the Titanic. There was also Arthur Young. He was the designer of the Bell helicopter. There was Georgia Jackson. There was Henry Jackson, Carl Betts, Vonnie Beck, Arthur and Ruth Young, all very, very old money. An early member that I must mention was Aldous Huxley, author of A Brave New World and the Doors of Perception. Also, early funder and member, Henry Wallace. He was vice president under Franklin D. Roosevelt, and also a 32nd degree Freemason, who just happened to be the guy that persuaded Roosevelt to add the reverse of the Great Seal of the United States, the pyramid, and you guessed it, the all-seeing eye, to the dollar bill. Remember, whenever you have conspiracy, you will always have the elite. Because not too often do you have the poor man conspiring against his government. It seems more often than not, you have the government conspiring against the poor man. So, to sum that up, we have a DuPont, an Astor, a Forbes/Payne, and a psychic research group funded by the U.S. government communicating with the Council of the Nine, the original deceivers, the Fallen. Obviously, nothing to see here. While communicating with the Council of Nine and making psychics like Uri Geller famous, Puharich was seen as a man in parapsychology fraternizing with mystics and psychics. But the whole time, behind the scenes, he together with the infamous Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, experimented with a variety of techniques to change or induce actual thought processes, even by creating the impression of voices in the head. This would come to be known as Project MK Ultra. And earlier I told you would hear a president apologize. The apology is from President Bill Clinton, and it is to the victims of Project MK Ultra, where by way of mind control, hypnosis, and mind-altering technology, many, many lives were ruined. Give it a listen.
This report I received today is a monumental document in more ways than one. But it is a very, very important piece of America's history, and it will shape America's future in ways that will make us a more honorable, more successful, and more ethical country. What this committee learned, I would like to review today with a little more detail than Dr. Faden said, because I think it must be engraved on our national memory. Thousands of government-sponsored experiments did take place at hospitals, universities, and military bases around our nation. The goal was to understand the effects of radiation exposure on the human body. While most of the tests were ethical by any standards, some were unethical, not only by today's standards, but by the standards of the time in which they were conducted. They fail both the test of our national values and the test of humanity. Informed consent means your doctor tells you the risk of the treatment you are about to undergo. In too many cases, informed consent was withheld. Americans were kept in the dark about the effects of what was being done to them. The deception extended beyond the test subjects themselves to encompass their families and the American people as a whole. For these experiments were kept secret, and they were shrouded not for a compelling reason of national security, but for the simple fear of embarrassment. And that was wrong. So today, on behalf of another generation of American leaders and another generation of American citizens, the United States of America offers a sincere apology to those of our citizens who were subjected to these experiments, to their families, and to their communities. When the government does wrong, we have a moral responsibility to admit it. The duty we owe to one another to tell the truth and to protect our fellow citizens from excesses like these is one we can never walk away from. Our government failed in that duty, and it offers an apology to the survivors and their families, and to all the American people who must be able to rely upon the United States to keep its word, to tell the truth, and to do the right thing.
If you believe Bill Clinton has ever been sincere towards the American public a day in his life, I have a bridge to sell you in New York. That being said, it was an apology for MK Ultra, in which, as I previously stated, thousands of tests were ran and thousands of lives were ruined. Stay tuned, and I'll be getting into that next week. But for today, remember, one suggestion from an anti-Christic order, a secret society, created a butterfly effect in which the corrupted mystery of enchantment was used against the minds of man. And real quick, before I forget, notice that this transmission was over 15 minutes. It is because I received one written 5-star review, and that listener, Soul Lil Dawn, requested that I provide more than 15 minutes of material. So, Soul Lil Dawn, that episode was for you. And if any of you would like to leave me a 5-star review, it really helps get the message out. It also helps with the podcast itself. And if you'd like to contact me, you can do so by emailing me at transmissionx@mail.com. Not Gmail, transmissionx@mail.com. Until next time, know that ancient deceptions are still affecting the world today, but most importantly, be ready.